Welcome everyone to Your Little Castle Show. We're going to share with people some of the inside secrets that we try to teach our clients. Many of you may know me as the Cardinal Cowboy. I've been voted one of Major League Baseball's favorite fans. I was the #1 fan in 2011. And I also was selected as one of 21 super fans in the United States by Bleacher Report, which now is outpacing Sports Illustrated and the like. But a lot of people do wonder, what do I do for a living? He must have a job. He must do something besides run around at baseball games, doing what I do to entertain, enthuse, enlighten, and hopefully inspire. But I was hit by a drunk driver, was in a coma, lucky to be alive. I'm going to share with you guys a little bit. Back out to our TV wall here. I'll switch over. A lot of people are familiar, but many people may not be. This is my little website called the Your Little Castle Show. We just put behind it there. That's the Cardinal Cowboy website right there. And we've got We Go Lead as a variation of We Go Lead, where we highlight our leaders. That's behind me. In a minute, I'm going to write down for you line by line how it is we help businesses calculate. I've done this on a very, very high level. Companies that were spending $100,000 per month with me to help to manage their pay per click and SEO, along with, and obviously your social media becomes a big thing there. And all of this can be tracked very closely, so you can figure out where it is. What are you doing that you are blowing between 30 and 50% of your business, of your leads? And we can prove that if you track. There it is. Most businesses waste 30 to 50% of their revenue, of their business, because they don't track things properly. So I'll show you here in a second. I'm going to pull up a spreadsheet. I changed the names to protect the innocent, because we don't want to give away any client data. It's data that's been around, but privately used for me and my clients. We changed the information on there with regard to who its data is, but it's real data for one of the larger clients. I've had many clients that spend $100,000 a month with me, different times in my career, some of them 2 or 3 at a time. It's a lot to manage one of those, but we're going to show you how that works, and we're going to write down for you the breakdown how that works. So with that, we'll go on to touch on a little bit more. But the Cardinal Cowboy thing really got started as I was hit by a drunk driver in a coma and pulled a ventilator out of my own throat. They thought I wasn't going to make it. I ruined my path to become a professional baseball player. I did make it as a professional field goal kicker. Played for the Missouri Monsters. Got to try out with the Rams. Coach many years later said, for my baseball career, college coach said, you had what it took. The guy we had was in AA, got to make it to AA. He was going to make it to the bigs, and went to Central Methodist University also. Back then it was CMC. And he said, you were as good as or better than him. God had a different plan for me, but now I get to work with a lot of organizations and kids at schools. My mom, teacher, most people are familiar with her. She just was put on the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, front page, and we just love working with all the charities. So if you understand my passion behind what I enjoy, there's my mom with me right there at the Cardinal game. And what I do and really enjoy helping small businesses now. My parents had a learning center for kids called Kit McGrath Education Center, and I just saw where they had to compete with the big guys, Sylvan, Kuman. And back then, we didn't have a TV show. And I'll explain to you why the TV show is so important and how it helps to bring a small business to the next level. But before we get into that, we'll dive into some of the numbers. I want to show you a number of mistakes we're also going to cover. What are the biggest scams? I've got these written down. There's 10 scams that you probably have been introduced to if you are a small business owner. And why would you want to get sucked in or tricked into using one of these scams? And it's pretty easy to identify if someone explains it to you. But so many times I find small business owners are going, well, I knew it wasn't working, so what? I couldn't prove it. I couldn't tell. I don't know where it was going. And it's not too difficult to track if somebody shows you how to do so. We're going to talk about that here, and I'll even give away some of my inside secrets about how you track that stuff, because it does add up to being between 30, 50, even more of your revenue wasted. So we'll tell you what you do with that revenue to then double your business. And let's dive in here right now. I want to jump over and show everybody real quickly. You can see on the screen now, I'm going to put up here, we do ask people important questions. And I'll put this on the screen for everybody, on live for everybody to see here. But that is, how is it that you track all of this stuff? Because this is the difference in business, success or failure. So the question is, do you know what your lead to sale? Many businesses do know the lead to sale percentage. But more importantly, because this is where the big bucks come in, do you close 50% of your leads? Do you close 75% of your leads? That's important. But the big influence, the big impact on businesses is their visit to lead ratio. So how many people come to your website, or how many people are referred to you? What percentage of them actually to say, hey, I'm interested, talk to me more. And if you can take that number, cut out what's not working, and then put in what is, you can double your business. I'll show you how that's done in a number of ways. We'll start off here by breaking it down for you. So let me give you some numbers here for you. If you just look here and take a look with regard, I'm going to write on the chalkboard here, the whiteboard, right? We got our slider going across here. But I'll put on the board here. I'm going to write this down. So let's say the average business has, I'm going to move her over here. I think it might be easier for everyone to see. Okay. If you've got $1,000 a month, all right? And let's just say for round numbers, keep it simple, but a lot of people, they don't know where all their money's going. But let's just say that is generating for you 100 visits. And that could be a number of different ways. But obviously that's easy to divide. And so whether you're driving that organically and you're spending a lot of time and energy, and how many visits came to your website? You got 100 visits, or was it pay-per-click, or was it SEO, or was it Facebook, or was it Instagram, or was it texting, or was it a billboard? Track all that. We'll show you to track all that. But let's say you get 100. So you're essentially paying $10 a visit, right? Because 10 times 100 is 1,000. So we've got $10 per visit. Now, what if I could show you, it's so easy to do this. People just don't understand where they're wasting their money. But if you could take that $10 per visit and convert that into where you're getting, instead of $10, instead of getting only 100 visits, you're getting 200 visits. Well, the way to easily do that is to take this cost and drive it down to $5. How do you do that? Because if you actually add up what your visits cost you, because how many of the visits don't turn into business, and you need to remove those visits from your list, remove those bad visits that don't convert. And lots of it has to do with what you're doing on Facebook or what you're saying out in the community, and people are coming to your website and leaving. And this is all trackable. But if you can cut that lead down to 5, now you're getting 200 visits, right? Because 200 visits, not $200. 5 times the 200 now is 1,000. Well, how do you do that? And now you've got twice as many visits. That's one very key way to get this done. And the truth is, again, how do you track this so that you don't spend money on things that aren't generating your revenue? With keywords, it's easy. For CarShield, for instance, back in the day, we started off with, and I won't give all the secrets in there, but I'll tell you this, I created, and I did this for another company called US Auto Protection. And both of them, we did a similar thing to start off with. And I did this myself. They don't even know all the details behind the back end of this, I don't think, until much later. I showed them and they ended up doing much of it themselves. That's fine. I'll teach you how to do this. But we have 4,300 keywords. So these are key words. And this is for pay per click, which is, for most people, is the most popular way to get business because it replaced the yellow pages, essentially, right? What keywords do you bid on? What of those keywords convert into sales? Visits and then into sales. So if I've got 4,300 keywords and they generate, let's say 1,000, and let's just say 100 visits again, we'll keep that at that number. But the keywords we're targeting, many of them, they click, they land, and then they bounce. So what's your bounce rate? You talk about that. Bounce rate at 50% or higher, you're not doing something right. So if you've got 100 visits and only 10% times 10% turn into leads, now you've got 10 leads. We end up with 10 because 10% of 100. Well, what if you can convert this ratio, this percentage, to 20? So now you're literally taking the same amount of money. You're spending $1,000 again. We're talking about over here. We got $1,000 right here. $1,000 at the top. We're saying cut that cost per lead or double the number of leads. Here, we're saying now let's get not 10% of those visitors turning into leads. Let's get 20%. So if we've got 20% of 100. %20 times 100. Now you've got 20 leads. But you're still spending that same $1,000. So your cost per lead has been cut in half because you figured out what keywords are working, what keywords are actually converting at a higher level. We took this 4,300 keywords and took it down to about 220. A number of the keywords you put in there never drove any visits at all. But there were a lot of keywords that were costing $10 and $15 and $20 a click that were converting at a lower ratio. So we had the high cost and the lower conversion rate. You're getting a double whammy with that. When you cut those out, you take it down just to the 220 keywords. Again, now you've cut out over 4,000. 4,300 minus it. So yeah, 4,080 keywords that you removed. But more importantly, it was a bunch of keywords that were causing visits that didn't convert into leads. Then you can take that to the next level. You figure out what keywords are turning into leads. And you go after those organically through SEO. But first do it through pay-per-click. And you can do it as little as $1,000 a month. You can do it for less. It depends on your niche. Depends how big of an area. Depends on your sector in the industry and how many competitors you have. But instead, again, doing how so now you have 20% of your visits turn into leads because you figured out what keywords were working. You get 20 instead of 10. Well, now that's 20 leads. Your cost per lead. What's your cost per lead here? You're talking about $100 a lead. For round easy numbers, 10 leads into 100, spending $1,000. You get $100 a lead. Now you just cut your lead. You've got 20 leads for that out of those same 100 visits. Or you could get even more clicks for less keywords, but you get the ratio perspective. So now at that same $1,000, I'm getting 20. Now my cost per lead is $50. I've just cut my cost per lead in half. I literally am spending half as much, or what you'll end up doing is reinvesting that money, spending the same money to get twice as much. So you're spending half as much to get twice as many leads. You spend that same $1,000 and double your revenue just because you figured out what keywords were working and what keywords were not. So I'm gonna take a quick picture of that because that's slide number 1. We'll start using this in our next presentation, but write that down. All right. So now the other component that's part of this that we talked about, it isn't just figuring out what keywords work. What's SEO, keywords, what you name it, whatever you're tracking business for, that's a cost. Whether it's organic, because you're spending your time to build a name in the community, a brand in the community, get people to go to your website. That's all time and energy. Just figure out how many leads, and then you say, hey, let's do whatever's working, pull out what's not. On the other end, the thing that you do to get that higher conversion rate, to get a conversion rate that's a larger number, is what do they see when they land? So we talked about the keywords, the type of traffic you're driving there. Then it's a matter of what do people see when they land? How do they respond when they've come to your website? And do you send them to your main web page? They typed in something specific like roofing repair. Well, do you send them to the home page or do you send them to a roofing repair page? Then beyond that, and this is where video is kicked in, and this is where it's kind of a no-brainer for everybody to get into the whole discussion about video, video, video. If you can have great looking, compelling, impressive, not shoddy, not low budget. I mean, you want to definitely, people shoot videos in the back of their garage and it looks terrible and they wonder why people don't want to call them. This is why being on a national network like what we do here with the Your Little Castle show is such a no-brainer, because it's so easy then to, no matter what happens with regard to what keyword, biggest problem people have is they don't realize organically they're getting a referral from somebody who says, hey, I had Bob built my deck and he did a great job. Bob should do your deck too. Great. So Bob gets a referral to Tina, and Tina says, let me check out Bob's website. Anytime you're going to spend anything over about $80, somebody's going to do. I need to do a little research. Is a deck more than $80? Very often. So roofing, decking, siding, even restaurants. I mean, go into the average people go, restaurants don't make much money with regard. No, they actually do, because they get a lifetime value of a customer. So that's what we're talking about. Cost per click. That was your cost per acquisition, or cost per lead. And then what's your cost per acquisition? How many leads does it take to close a sale? If you've got 5 leads to close a sale, you close 1 out of 5, and they're $50 each. Let's write that down. Remember, I've got our leads down to $50 per lead. Now, I'm just going to rewrite that one. Hold on. $50 per lead. If we have $50 per lead, and it takes 5 to get a closed deal, whatever it is, our cost per acquisition is $250. I call that CPA. Some people call it CAC, cost to acquire a customer. $250. If your product sells for $10,000 and you spend $250 to get that client, is it worth it? But don't spend $500. Your overhead starts eating away, and then you end up with a profit of $2,500 after your overhead. $10,000 deck, $2,500 in materials, for example. You're $7,500. Well, your $7,500 got down to 5 by 500. Well, if that ratio goes even higher, now you're spending $1,000 to get it. Would you rather give people your profit be $7,500 or $7,000? You do that times 2 and 3 and 4, and then you multiply that out. Or if that number goes up to where it takes 10 or 15 leads instead of 5 to close a deal, then your cost is 3 times as much. So you don't want to let your cost per lead get out of whack, and you want to make sure they're getting at a good ratio. So you need to track this. This is done through Google Analytics, Allstats, and a number of other places you can pull data. And then beyond that, I'll show you some insights that we have, separate tracking programs we use that I recommend. I've been using for decades now, that will track what keywords cause the call, what search terms cause the call, what organic search caused the call, or if it was somebody that came in through a radio ad or a TV ad or a billboard. All of that can be tracked organically. All that can be tracked so you know where your leads are coming in from, so you can track down what is giving you the best bang for the buck and what you should cut out. Getting that back down to where your cost per acquisition, CPA, get that down. Another way to really increase your CPA or lower your CPA is to get that to where you don't spend near as much because people decide to buy from you. And that's what I was talking about a minute ago with regard to TV. And being on TV in a long format, being on TV in a short format is kind of a teaser. It does get some attention, but it really just causes you to have to do more work. You get a lot of tire kickers. When they see something flashy on TV and they call you, they weren't really looking for it. It's not about being seen on TV. It's about being seen on the interwebs, because they look for you and then they see your television interview on your website. And that's what causes a much higher ratio of visit to lead. Not just by figuring out what keywords, but just imagine you have all the keywords. You figured that all out right already. You've cut out the keywords that don't work. You're keeping all the keywords that do. Or you cut out the marketing that doesn't work. You're going to trade shows, but instead you do better going to happy hours. I mean, you can track all of this. And if you set it up correctly, now you figure out what's working best. Well, then what happens when they get to your website? This is another way to greatly, and the easiest way to increase your close rate, bringing your cost per acquisition down. So let's talk about that a little bit. As we get into this, you'll see now we've got people coming to the website. What happens? And just listen to what my clients are saying. I'm going to share with you a little bit before we move on here some of the stats. This is a good example on the screen behind me. I'll put this on the wall. Before we get into that, I want you to take a quick look. I almost skipped this part, but as you look here is that lead cost, the calls tracked, the keywords calculated to figure out what keywords were not working, how many visits total came in, the cost per visit, then the close rate, the closed deals, and the cost per acquisition, all tracked, easily trackable if you set it up. And it's worth doing this for $1,000, because if you're spending $1,000, you should have only spent 500. Or if you take that 1,000 and essentially say, hey, cut out the 500 that's not working, replace it with 500 that is, now you've doubled your actual return on your investment and your revenue. So that's where we wanted to emphasize that. So let's get into now, and this is why I remembered this, because we want to get into the next big, and this is the easiest thing to fix, because it doesn't take a whole lot of tracking, it doesn't take a whole lot of configuration. It's just a basic insight and understand. You can track this as well, but it's a lot more simple to track, much more simple to track. And that is for you to take an awesome video. So let me just show you what some of my guests and clients have told me, because this does help you to do so as a matter of taking a good looking video. So I'm going to take you over here and show you just a little bit. This is an actual comment made by an actual guest. I'm zipping through some of our presentations here because we want to get to the important, easy ones. But here it is, and you look on the wall behind me now. This is Ed Callison, and I'll show you the better view here. We can do it like this. This is on the wall stream. This is what we're showing here while I'm standing in front of the wall. But Ed tracked, and so did Isaac, by the way. We'll go back one slide to show you that. But Ed tracked that he increased he said he did no other marketing, no other advertising, other than taking this interview that we did in our studio. That's him in the studio. And I superimposed what he said to me later, but it says, I got a 25% increase in business from being on your show, Carter, because he had people already heard about him. They came to his website. But when they landed there, or he gained more traction by saying, go watch my interview on their social media. So it brings a lot more traffic to his website. And so he saw a 25% increase in his business just by having this video on his social media and on his website. So with that, then we say, all right, what are somebody who's actually tracked their results? And here's where we have a great example. And this is just one of many. And many of these are on our website, yourlittlecastle.com/results. And you can see here, Isaac tracked 12 sales specifically to this show, his interview on our show. That's why he came back in to be on our show again. And he said, Carter, I tracked 12 sales. Those sales were worth $30,000 each. A gross revenue of $360,000. His profit is generally around 25 to 30%. So he made over $100,000 in gross revenue just because of being on television. He says in the video, you can click on the play button on this thing. It's on our website. And it showed where he converted 12 sales. That added about 25%. He doesn't do 12 sales a week. He does about 4 or 5 a month. This added one extra per month at 20%, 25%. And that's a huge increase, $100,000, just because he took the easy way, because he put a great looking video on his website. And he talks about how important that is. So you can see a little bit more about the Cardinal Cowboy there. And then here's Your Little Castle website. And all this kind of information is out there. So now I'll finish up with showing you some of the ratios when you do this. Because if you could take your close rate and increase it by 25%, how does that work? So track your leads again. So we'll put this down. Let's just say, and we've got a calculator on our website. And I'm gonna bring this up for everybody too, as a matter of fact. Let me do that. But if you take your website, your leads, and you track them, or how many visits you have on your website, and you go to check this out, YTV sells.com. Look at this. We talk about it. We're going to put it on the wall over here. Yeah, that was it. We had it there, okay, on the big wall. We'll put that up. And if you go down here and put in this calculator, it converts it for you. I created this calculator with AI. I used to make these analysis tools myself. But you put this in, it says, hey, how many visits do I have? What percentage of those visits that were going to be just visits, they didn't spend the time to figure out more about us because the video wasn't there. Videos, they get your attention because they have a video that says, hey, here's why I do this. Here's what we do. Here's how we help the community. This is what I do to make a difference. That's how we treat our customers. You do it in a half-an-hour format. It also gets cut up with the clips for you too. Now you've got another reason to compel. It gets you that 25% increase. So if you calculate right here, take this and say, all right, if my average job is, let's just say your average job is 10,000, and you get, let's say, an average of just 100 views, and it can increase your conversion rate just by 2% with a 25% margin, your return on your investment, you're going to make an estimated annual increase of $240,000, $60,000 just because you had this video out there. Now, if your numbers end up being a little better than that, and it doesn't take much, it doesn't matter to that, you just count on all organic visits, or you get everybody and their brother to come out there. You're pushing out there to the social medias and paying people to, paid promotions with SEO, YouTube. And let's just take this up to 3%, and let's take this up to 250 visits a month. I mean, look at this. This is insane. Now, you spent that same $3,000, but you're making $900,000. I mean, this is where being on TV is an absolute no-brainer. So we just want to help people understand that if you actually do these things, that will make it easier for you to make, because people want to hear why they should buy from you. And they don't want to hear, well, go to your website and have to search through a bunch of reviews and get a complicated website with all kinds of pictures. They want straight answers, right to them. Do that. So as we finish up here, I'm going to share with you, let's break it down. So let's just say you do have that 25%. I will write this down. Same thing as on that sheet. If you end up spending $3,000, you get for the show, for the interview, an IV to your business. And there's, let's just say you get 100 visits a month. I'm sorry, 1,000 visits a month, or maybe it's 100, maybe whatever. But let's do ratio. It's 100, 200, 1,000. Let's say 1,000 for easy numbers. And that just means only. It'd be crazy that if it's on your website, that you wouldn't get 200 people that would watch the video. If it just increased 10% of them, if 10% of them decide that they want to buy from you that wouldn't have, now look at these numbers. Same kind of idea. We'll write it down for you. So we get visits, views. They were looking for you. Somebody told them to go there. It's only 200 views a month. What if it was only 20? 10% of those that visited, only 10% decide to buy from you. That's 20 more sales a month. Convert to sales. That's 20 extra sales. If your average sale makes you $2,000, let's make it $5,000. Look at that. Now you just made an extra, add to zero. So that turns into 20 times 5,000. So you've got 5 zeros. That means $100,000 in sales. Why wouldn't you do this every day and twice on Sunday? We hope you enjoyed our little interview here, a little tutorial, and stay tuned for more, because there's a lot more to learn from us. Check us out. Go to WeGo Lead, and best place is Cowboy Go. You can watch this video. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and get a hold of us. You can see the phone number. You can text that phone number, 636-434-2799. We'll talk soon. Giddy up.